Hello and welcome to Opt to Thrive, episode 63. Progesterone, the unsung hero?
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
Hello! So today is a beautiful Saturday on the farm. It was a glorious blue sky this morning. It's now a bit gray and overcast, but we are starting to get some gorgeous spring weather, and it just seems like the winter has flown by. I've been very busy this winter, so it just went so quickly. I have not even gotten around to pruning my roses, and I am looking out there now and I can see a rose. There's a rose on my rose bush. I'm hoping that I haven't missed the boat. I really need to get out there this weekend and prune those roses because they are really super tall. And I want to have a beautiful rose garden when everything goes into bloom. It's very green out there. We have had a bit of wetness this winter, which is great. I'm hearing that some of the broadacre farmers are very happy with the rain, but I'm told that now it probably needs to stop. So we'll just ask the rain gods to slow down so that they can reap those beautiful crops I'm hearing that they have. And hopefully we're going to start to see the grapes turn around. I'm not sure from what I understand that it's going to be this year, but hopefully it's coming. So I am doing a few podcasts over this weekend. I'm getting a few up and ready because in about a week, well, actually, in a week from today, I am heading to Fiji with 3 of my girlfriends, 2 who are, pretty avid swimmers. One is a fair weather swimmer. She stopped jumping in about a month ago when it was getting pretty cold in the river. But she's a very good swimmer, and me, who, will probably wear my flippers, I'd imagine. But we're all going to Fiji. We're going to do the swimming holiday. We're going to swim around islands. We're going to swim in the beautiful blue waters. I am going to soak up as much sun as I possibly can through my SPF 50. I am just going to soak it all up. I cannot wait. So I am getting some podcasts up and ready, which is, not my style. I'm a fly by my pants kind of girl. Let's get them ready the week it's time to do it. But one of them that I will be putting up in the next few weeks has been done for a while. It was an interview. So that's pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure what order I'm going to go in yet, but that'll be a surprise. There'll still be the mindful moment when mindful moments do, but I've got a good couple of episodes coming up for you. Now, this episode was inspired by a patient, as they often are. She came in to see me, and we had started her on some hormone treatment. So we started her on an estrogen and a progesterone, and she thought that she had reacted to the progesterone. We started her on a progesterone, an estrogen and a progesterone capsule that you take at night before bed because it can be a little sedating. And instead of a better sleep, which we often see with menopause hormone treatment, she was finding herself waking at 3 a.m. in a fright, like something was really wrong. So she stopped the hormone treatment, but then she decided to try maybe just the estrogen for a couple of days on its own to see if maybe it was the progesterone causing the problem, because that's what she suspected. And what she found was that with just the estrogen, she felt great. So she did a little of her own research, and she found some sites talking about using progesterone vaginally. And she had read that it could be better this way in terms of side effects and mood in particular. Then she brought this question to me the next time I saw her. Is it okay to take it vaginally? Is there any truth in what she read that it may be better taken this way? Now, I have also read that progesterone could be taken vaginally, but I have never prescribed it that way, and so I didn't feel confident answering those questions. So I decided that I needed to go away, leave it with me. I'm going to find some answers and continue to build on my own knowledge. Looking for some specific answers led me, as always, down lots of very interesting little rabbit holes. So I decided to do a whole episode just on progesterone. Estrogen gets a lot of its own publicity, right? It's like the lead singer, the quarterback, the star of the show when it comes to menopause hormone treatment. It's the hormone that usually gets all the attention in menopause. But progesterone is actually really interesting, and I think you're going to agree. So I think it's best if we start from the beginning. But the beginning really is a chicken and egg type thing. You'll see why I say that in just a second. So when we are of reproductive age and our ovaries are functioning normally, our cycles start with the ovaries preparing to release an egg for fertilization. The follicle in the ovary is where the egg is and where it is prepared to be released. The follicle during this time is also producing a type of estrogen called estradiol. The estradiol goes away, and amongst other things, it works on building up the lining of the uterus to prepare it for a pregnancy. Now, when the egg is released from the follicle then becomes what is called a corpus luteum, and its job now is to produce progesterone. And fun fact, it makes progesterone from cholesterol. Aren't our bodies fascinating? The progesterone's job is to go and slow down the effects of the estradiol on the lining of the uterus. If estradiol were left to just do its thing, it would just build and build and build the lining. But the progesterone comes along and kind of balances out the effects of the estradiol to make the lining just right for a pregnancy. Now, if no pregnancy happens, then the corpus luteum shrivels up, the progesterone levels fall, and we have a period. And then the whole thing starts all over again. If there is a pregnancy, this corpus luteum is really important to keep the lining stable for the pregnancy to progress. The chemical beta-HCG that you've probably heard of is the one that we test for in pregnancy tests, either urine tests or blood tests. Beta-HCG is released from the embryo, and it's this chemical that rescues the corpus luteum, and it keeps it from shriveling up so that it can keep making progesterone so that the lining of the uterus is stable and the embryo remains happy. The corpus luteum does this job until the placenta can take over, but the placenta still has to grow. So it takes about 8 good weeks or so before the placenta is ready to do that job. Now, if there isn't enough progesterone, the estrogen can cause overgrowth of the lining of the uterus, just like I mentioned, and this can cause a pregnancy to fail. But of course, here today, for our purposes, most of us aren't overly interested in pregnancy. In fact, it would probably be the last thing that many of us want at this stage of our lives. So in the context of the woman who is in this menopausal stage, the important thing to know here is that when the ovaries stop producing eggs, they also stop producing estrogen and progesterone. The lack of estrogen is what causes most of the symptoms of menopause. But if we give a woman just estrogen to help with those symptoms, it will stimulate the lining of the uterus. And without enough progesterone to balance it out, that can result in an overgrowth of the lining, and that can eventually lead to endometrial cancer, so cancer of the lining of the uterus. This is why when we prescribe menopause hormone treatment to anyone that has a uterus, they absolutely must have some type of a progestogen, which is just the name that we give to all the drugs that act like our body's progesterone. I use the term progesterone most frequently because that's the most common form of progestogen that I prescribe in menopause hormone treatment. But there are several other progestogens, like in the Mirena intrauterine device or the combined hormone patches. So let's talk a little about how progestogens are made, because there are a couple points that are important to make. First, there is no such thing as a true natural progesterone medication. Do not be scammed by someone telling you that there is. The only true natural progesterone is the one that our ovaries make. All progestogens, again, any drug that behaves like our body's own progesterone, so that includes the drug progesterone, these are all made in a lab, and they are all plant-based, mainly from soy or a type of yam. So technically, they are all natural. They come from a natural plant base, but they all go through different chemical processes in a lab to turn the final product into a progestogen. Now, you may hear the term body or bioidentical, and this just means that the progesterone in the drug is as close as we can get to the molecular structure of the progesterone made in the body. But it is still synthetic, meaning that it is made in a lab just like all the other progestogens. In our bodies, the ovaries make most of our progesterone, but there is also some made in the adrenal glands, which sit on the top of our kidneys, and some is also made in the brain and our nervous system. The progesterone made in the adrenal glands is mostly used as a precursor, so something that can be made into something else, and in this case, it's made into cortisol, our body's stress hormone. Progesterone is also a precursor to testosterone and estradiol. Fascinating, hey? So the supporting act or the backup singer, progesterone, is pretty darn important. Now, the brain and nervous system makes its own little supply of progesterone, as I said, and it's thought that it uses it to help protect and repair itself. This probably leads us nicely into the effects of progesterone on mood. Now, looking at the literature in terms of mood, it was all over the place. It turns out, surprise, surprise, there is still a lot we do not know that we haven't figured out yet. We do know that some women are particularly susceptible to the effects of hormones, and that the progesterone side of things does often seem to be the culprit. For many women, the common progesterone capsule, micronised progesterone, like the one I use a lot, is neutral or may even feel calming and improve sleep or mood. But for others, those who are sensitive to hormonal fluctuations, it can make things worse. Anxiety, irritability, or low mood. One of the reasons I prescribe the progesterone capsule a lot is because it can be a little sedating. But it's funny, there are women who can take one and feel the drowsiness, and women who can take 3 and don't feel anything. You just don't know until you try. There are several other reasons I also like this form of progesterone compared to other options. It's associated with a lower risk of breast cancer, it seems to have fewer effects on mood, and it doesn't increase the risk of blood clots or have a negative effect on cholesterol. Another fun and important bit of knowledge is that the most common form of micronized progesterone in Australia is the brand Prometrium. This formulation is a capsule, and the capsule is made with peanut oil. So if you have a peanut allergy, you should not take it. And it's a fun fact that I think that maybe there are some clinicians who might not realize. There is another option though, so make sure if you're offered this type of progesterone, you get the one not made from peanut oil if you do have a peanut allergy. Now, for our question about taking the capsule vaginally, yes, there are practitioners who do prescribe it, what we call off-label, meaning that is not how it's recommended to be taken, so kind of at your own risk. Now, before we go into how the vaginal preparation may be different, we probably need to talk about how medications are absorbed in general and how they're processed in the body. When we take any medication orally, so we swallow it, it goes down into the stomach and it's absorbed somewhere between the stomach and the anus into our bloodstream. From there, it is kind of filtered through the liver where some of the drug gets metabolized and only a portion of the drug is then sent out, still active, into the bloodstream where it makes its way to wherever it's going to be used. So the logic behind taking progesterone vaginally is that it is absorbed from the vaginal circulation directly into the bloodstream, and it misses that what we call the first pass effect from the liver. So the liver isn't getting its hands on it to break it down. The vagina and the uterus have a network of blood vessels between them, so the progesterone can make its way pretty much directly to the uterus, again, skipping that breaking down process in the liver. What's really interesting, though, is that what we see is higher levels of progesterone in the uterus where we want it, and that makes sense, but lower levels in the rest of the circulation where it's not needed. So theoretically, this might reduce side effects. Now, from what I can gather, we don't really know the full mechanism of what is happening here. I thought we got less in the circulation because the uterus was taking it all, but apparently it's thought to be more of a result of a lower and slower amount being absorbed when the progesterone is used vaginally. Fascinating. But is it safe? The studies are a bit mixed about whether we can truly rely on how much is absorbed vaginally to give adequate, consistent, and long-term protection to the lining of the uterus. The truth is we just don't know for sure. So guidelines are pretty cautious when it comes to using progesterone vaginally. I myself am pretty conservative, so my opinion is going to fall on the side of certainty, what we know really does work and is safe. You may also hear of progesterone gels that can be used vaginally, but again, just not enough data to support its safety, that it is going to give us the protection that we're after. Now, you may have also heard about topical progesterone cream. It's a cream you rub into your skin. I've had some patients source it online, but here is what you really need to know and where all the experts do agree. Progesterone is not absorbed well through the skin. Progesterone is what we call lipophilic, meaning it dissolves in fat, so it's thought that it can't get past the lipids, the fats in the skin cells, or the fatty layer under the skin, so it doesn't make it into the bloodstream. There are several studies that have shown very low blood levels of progesterone after topical application, levels that are too low to protect the uterus. Now, apparently some women have been offered salivary testing to show that the levels are adequate, but salivary hormone testing is not accurate. There have been studies that show progesterone levels high in the saliva, but not in the bloodstream, and that is where we need it to be to get it to where we want it to go. So don't let anyone dupe you into relying on a salivary progesterone level. It isn't reliable, and therefore it isn't safe. So what about those women who've had a hysterectomy? Do they need progesterone? The short answer is no. But if you've had endometriosis, it may be advisable to have progesterone because people with endometriosis have little bits of uterine tissue growing outside of where the uterus used to be. It's often attached to ovaries or bowel, and these bits of tissue can also be stimulated by estrogen, just like the uterus would have been if it was still there. But if you've never had endometriosis, what would be the harm in taking a progesterone anyway when you don't have a uterus? The answer to this question takes us back to that old study. You know the one, the WHI study from 2003 that told us all we're going to get breast cancer if we took menopause hormone treatment. So, in case you didn't know, those risks were grossly hyper-exaggerated. The truth is that what we learned from that study is that there is thought to be a small increase in risk of breast cancer after taking combined menopause hormone treatment, or HRT as we called it back in the day, so estrogen with a progesterone. And that risk shows up after about 5 or so years of taking it. But what you probably didn't hear from the results of that study is that the estrogen-only group, so those women who didn't have a uterus, so only needed estrogen, actually had a decrease in the risk of breast cancer. So it was thought to be the progestogen component that caused the increase in risk. It's another one of the reasons I like to prescribe the progesterone capsule when I need to use a progestogen, because it appears that it carries less risk than many of the others. So for the women who don't have a uterus, a progestogen is generally not recommended. But there are women who want to trial it to see if they do get any of the possible benefits for mood or sleep. There are certainly other options for those things, but for those women who do want to try a progestogen, a micronised progesterone is likely to be the safest option. So there you go. That is the scoop on progesterone. I hope that this has given you a whole new perspective and deepened your understanding around the other hormone menopause effects, progesterone, the unsung hero. I hope you all have a lovely week, and until then, I hope you opt to thrive. Hey, before you go, if you're a midlife woman who wants to feel better in your body, whether that means improving your health, building strength and confidence, or working towards weight change in a kinder, more sustainable way, I have created something especially for you to support you. It's called the Midlife Health and Body Reset Kickstart Guide, and it's a free 7-day foundations guide to help you understand what's going on in your body in midlife and what actually makes a difference from here. You can download it using the link in the show notes. And if you're ready to take that work to the next step and you would like some personalized support to make it work, I run a 12-week midlife reset program where we work together on body recomposition, so losing body fat while regaining muscle, the absolute best thing we can be doing in midlife to combat midlife metabolic convergence. You get a custom strength training program from an exercise physiologist, weekly coaching with me, personalized nutrition guidance, and accountability to help you actually follow through. If that sounds like what you need, head on over to optothrive.com to find out more about the program and maybe even book a call with me to ask me any questions that you have, see if we're a good fit, and see if this program's for you.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts for medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at optothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.